Good afternoon, or good morning, or good evening, whenever you listen to this. This is the Business Hub. This is the podcast that is directed towards small to medium sized businesses. I am your host, Don Workman. And today we're going to talk about 1099s in the workforce, healthcare and the 1099 workforce. So today I thought I'd bring on the director of this program. She's a mother. She's a very intelligent lady. We work together in different parts of the country. She's in Kansas, but she's the director of our program that we like to call the Wellness 360. Miss Tiana Wullenschneider. I think I said that right, right?
Close enough.
Okay. All right. So, can you start by sharing a little bit about Wellness 360 and your role as the director?
Happy to. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the program. I'm really excited to be here. Wellness 360. This is a program that's all about putting a doctor in your pocket. What this involves is being able to make sure that you have access to medical advice, prescription help, counseling help, mental health assistance, all of that when you need it on demand. And this is, I think, even more functional than some of them that are out there because of the range of things that can provide and the fact that you're constantly talking to somebody who has a medical license. You're not going to be talking to somebody who can't write you a prescription. You're not going to be talking to somebody who's a student and learning. This is somebody who can actually provide you with the health advice that you need. And if you need something outside of the scope for what you can do on telemedicine, because let's be honest, they can't put a stethoscope on you when you're using your phone to check what your heart's doing or to check your breathing. Then they're going to tell you, hey, you know what? We need to make sure you get seen in person, and they're going to help you find the resources you need based upon if you're insured, if you're not insured, the area you're in, to get you the help you need to get things taken care of early and help us all be healthier in the end.
And that's pretty much that's a great thing. If I pretty much, it is a great thing to be able to have that. So, what inspired you to focus on healthcare solutions for independent workers and small businesses?
There are a lot of people out there who have access to the health benefits of their companies. But let's be honest, most of them anymore, especially the last few years, we've seen those prices going up. And if you don't have access to group insurance, you generally don't have access to insurance. And if you don't have access to insurance, all you have access to is whatever your state is providing you if you qualify or emergency services. And that's it. The creators of this program, who originally put it together because of a great tragedy. And that is that the man's wife was so focused on making sure he and his kids were taken care of. She was always taking care of them. They were tight on money. So she, as many parents out there do, just dismissed her own health concerns. Oh, you know what? I'm getting older. It's no big deal. I don't have money to go to the doctor. I don't have the time to go and see the doctor. I can just blow this off. I can work through it. I can push through it. Pull them up by your bootstraps. This is, unfortunately, the American way. But it wasn't something she should have dismissed. And by the time it got to the point where she was willing to get it checked, it was too late. And she ended up passing from it. And so the creator just did not want that happening anymore. If you have some problems, you should get your health questions taken care of. Kids need their moms, they need their dads. You know, when you have kids who are sick from school, you need to be able to get doctor's notes. You need to make sure that it's not something you need to go to the ER for. How many questions are out there where you either don't get assistance when you need it, or you go for too much assistance when you don't need it? How many people are struggling with bills from medical procedures that maybe there were other ways to keep those bills down? There are so many things out there that affect people medically, and we avoid asking the questions of the right people. And that's kind of passionate with me too. I am a mom. I have been known to do that. Even with this at my fingertips, I have to remind myself, hey, use it. Ask the question. Get an answer just to make sure it's not something you need to worry about. But We want to make everyone healthier. And we want everyone to be here to see their kids grow up, to see their kids graduate, and all of those amazing milestones along the way.
That's amazing, and they can tell the passion in your voice. And not only are you the director, you're also a client. To steal that little adage from that commercial, and you shared with me stories, and what you're talking about is great because even off camera we talked about what is it, 40% of people looking to leave the corporate America to start their own business. Mm-hmm. What are they going to do about healthcare? Because healthcare is not cheap. Cobra is definitely not cheap. So we're glad to bring an option for folks, and I hope that the folks watching or listening could really dig in and maybe grab something from here. We're going to have some more information about how to contact us regarding this. But we're going to keep going with this. So the third question in this particular segment is, from your perspective, how has the landscape of workplace wellness changed the rise of 1099s and the gig worker?
If you are in the corporate environment and you have access to group insurance, you have access to also all these new wellness programs coming out. Things that track your steps, things that help you with weight loss, things that help you with nutrition, all these things the company's trying to put in place to make you happy and hopefully miss fewer days of work. But when you get out of that environment, suddenly those resources aren't really available. Or if they are, you got to pay out of the nose for them.
Yeah.
But they're valuable. Even the companies have noticed they're valuable. And I think even as a 1099er or an entrepreneur, it's even more important for us to be cognizant of our health, because let's be honest, we're going to work longer hours. We're going to make more excuses not to do things like hiking or exercise or whatever else we're supposed to be doing. We're going to eat shorter meals because we're so focused on building something amazing we're going to pass on to our children, that we're going to pass on to the next generation. If you don't have access to something to call you on it, and they have called me on it, I have had the conversation of, honey, you are not eating enough, you're not exercising enough, what are you doing here? If you don't have someone to call you on it and help you stay healthy, what are you working towards? How are you going to enjoy what you're building?
You're not wrong. I hate it when that happens. But yeah, you're absolutely right. So let's kind of take a little bit of a step back and look at some of the challenges of the healthcare for 1099ers. Why is it so difficult for 1099 contractors to find affordable, comprehensive healthcare coverage?
So that answer varies a lot by states, and because we have marketplaces that were put in place to allow people access, but depending on your state and your location, what options are available in that marketplace and what bonuses isn't the right word, discounts. What discounts are available varies according to your state. So we may have some people in parts of the country who are able to get group health insurance that covers all the major medical at a price completely affordable for your family. And there will be other areas of the country that can't get that. But the fact of the matter is, even if you have the marketplace, even if you have those discounts, you have to qualify for the discounts. And sometimes that qualification doesn't make sense. There are places where to get Medicaid, just for instance, which is generally a free state-provided health insurance, right, you not only have to work, but you have to make below a certain income level. And sometimes that income level is set so low that if you even make minimum wage and work full-time, you're over that, but you still don't have enough money to afford health insurance. So crazy. It can be extremely challenging to support a family, which we know group insurance family rates are expensive. I was in corporate America, and we were bragging about how great our rates were, but my family rate was around $500 a month that the company paid half of. So I was paying $250 a month. But that was group insurance that the company was paying half of. Yeah. So even if I got group insurance without a company, now it's $500 a month. As an entrepreneur, can I swing that? And that was 3 years ago.
Right. Crazy. And like on the flip side of where you're at, my last child just rolled off of our insurance. It was almost like getting a pay raise because it cut to like half of what you're doing. But still, I mean, even to do this as an entrepreneur and pay that out of pocket versus having a company pay for it is huge, huge. So that's great. So, what are some of the biggest misconceptions people have about healthcare options for independent contractors?
I think the biggest misconception is people assume that if you can't afford insurance that you're going to qualify for the free stuff your state provides. They just assume that, and many times it's not. We have a large portion of the population that falls in between the two. They can't afford the insurance available, but they can't qualify for the discounts in the marketplace. They can't qualify for their state insurance. Even if you can get your kids onto that, what are the adults supposed to do? You know, you're not able to get yourself taken care of. And then every time you get sick, every time you have a sniffle, every time you have an aches and pains or a massive headache, or God forbid you get into an accident of any kind, you're sitting back and saying, can I even afford to ask the doctor any questions about this? Can I even afford to go to the doctors and pay $200, $300 just to sit in a waiting room for an hour, just to speak to a doctor for 15 minutes, who's going to tell me it's viral anyway and not give me anything for it?
Right.
And then you miss something that's not viral and should have been looked at by a doctor.
That's just insane. So, how does the lack of benefits impact their health or productivity and financial security? And I think probably all three to say negatively. But if you want to jump in and kind of expound on any of that, feel free. I mean, I'm a very short to the point, but the more information we have, the better for the audience.
As an entrepreneur, the one thing we do not get is sick days.
You're not kidding.
If we are not working, we're not getting paid.
Yeah.
You cannot cancel an appointment. Now you're trying to take time away from a future date. You can't guarantee that person isn't going to say, oh, this is too much trouble, I'm not going to talk to you anyway. You can't, if you're creating something, whether it's, a small thing on Etsy that you're running an Etsy shop for, or you're making something like furniture or something bigger, when you lose those work hours, they are gone. You can't get them back, and you don't get paid for them. Right. So when you don't have health insurance, you can't see a doctor. And when you can't see a doctor, you can't get prescriptions. And if a prescription is going to lessen your symptoms or lessen the time at which you're sick, you're going to be sick for longer. And when you're sick for longer, you're losing more time. Even if you try to work through it, Lord knows we all try to work through it, you're going to be less productive, less efficient, and you're going to make more mistakes.
Absolutely.
And then you're wondering, should I even have tried in the first place?
So let's go back to our former worlds. We both worked in technology in another life. For businesses that rely on the contractors, I was a contractor for a certain amount of time. What hidden costs or risks do they face when the 1099 workers don't have access to care?
So I know in a lot, especially the technology sector, and I was doing engineering as well, when you hired a contractor, you were trying to hire them to get a job done. You didn't hire them necessarily for how many hours they put in. And the contractor is trying to bill for enough hours to get it done, but they also want to sneak in a few projects on the side. Now, let your contractor get sick. Let him get sick with something that takes a week, 2 weeks. Let's just say, when I had COVID the first time, I was down for 3 weeks. 3 solid weeks. I was unable to function. Luckily, I was not a 1099 at the time, but if I had been, and I was doing that kind of contracting work, now either the person who's paying me is going to get less quality work because I'm going to rush it through to get it through by the deadline, or I'm going to have to push back the deadline on it, and that affects their timelines and how this project affects the other things it ties into, or, some combination of the two. Maybe you even push it out, but you were so sick and still recovering that even that meant you didn't provide the quality of work you normally would.
So true. So true. Gosh, yes. And, I've been in that same boat myself, and and you talk about losing the focus and not being flat on your back with the flu. Who's gonna want to send a field a call, sit on your Microsoft project, whatever you were doing, And if you're an entrepreneur, like somebody that runs a food truck, That's money you're done for that day, and you don't want to
Yep.
contaminate anybody. So for sure. All right, we've been enough of the ugly. Let's talk a little bit more of the Wellness 360's approach. So how does the Wellness 360 help bridge the gap in healthcare for the 1099 crowd and the small business employees?
So the big thing is it's one monthly fee that covers your whole family. It is only $48 a month. And that includes you, your spouse, and any child under the age of 26. That means it includes those kids going off to college. And it is just an app that can go onto the phone. It can go onto every phone that has a cell phone number attached to it. So you
That's
can
pretty good,
give
yeah.
connection to your children when they're old enough. You can give a connection to your spouse. And whenever you have a question for a doctor, you can pull up the app on your phone and send a text message and say, this is what I'm dealing with. And sometimes they'll say, okay, that's great. And they'll type or text back what you need to know. And sometimes it'll be like, let's talk to a provider. Are you available for a video call? This whole process usually takes about 5 minutes. And then you are doing a video call with a doctor who's going to go through all of those questions you normally get in the doctor's office and then go over what your options are. I've even talked to them when I was having the throat nasal thing going on, and they were like, so can you point the phone at your throat so I can see what's going on? And I was like, all right. And I managed to get the light perfect. And they're like, oh, that's a great view. Thank you. I saw exactly what I needed to see. All right, cool. I
That's
don't need to go in and
insane.
see a doctor then. You just saw the back of my throat. And they were able to get me a prescription and get me back and working very quickly. And they write a prescription, they send it to the pharmacy in your area. They will even help you price it based upon if you put your insurance into the app, they'll know what your insurance is. They know the pharmacies in your area, and they'll say, okay, here's a discount coupon that will apply to this pharmacy, and that's going to bring your price to this. Do you want to use it?
That's
I've
insane.
had them have a pharmacy 3 cities away ship and mail it to me because it was cheaper that way than picking it up at my local.
And see, that's the what you just alluded to something. You live in small town mid America. I live in big DFW, and you get the same service regardless of where you're at. Yeah, mine might be up the street, but you don't have to go visit a doctor when you're feeling like crap. Because driving when you feel like crap, you're more likely to get in an accident. So
Yes.
that is phenomenal.
And we were talking about the time
okay.
thing with the entrepreneurs.
Sure.
Think
Yeah.
about the fact that I just sat down with the doctor. I spent maybe 15 minutes of my day getting an answer and a prescription. I didn't have to drive to a doctor's office. I didn't have to sit in a waiting room, possibly picking something else up. And I didn't have to, go back and lose an hour, 2 hours of my working day in order to get myself taken care of. Now I
If
can
not
get
longer,
back to
too.
work. I can get back to moving. And the same applies for mental health. That's something else entrepreneurs miss all the time. You can reach out saying, I'm overwhelmed. I need help with organization. I need help because my business is failing and I think it's up here. It's not, my system is good. My product is good. My people are good. It's here. Help me. And they will get you talking to somebody. And if what you need exceeds what they can do, they will help you find resources.
And now those are also licensed people, the
Yes.
mental therapists. Yes? Okay, okay. Wow, that's something that a lot of companies don't offer just because of I guess the expense, and then you go to do it on your own, and they have to report it to your business, your employer.
That's a whole nother subject. There is a whole group of people, whether they're in corporate America or you're in the police force or military, they are afraid to get mental health because if it shows up on your insurance, then your company sees what was charged there. They may not know why you went. They don't know if you went for couples counseling or because you yourself were having thoughts that could affect your work. But because it's there, maybe you don't get that promotion. Maybe you don't get moved up in the company. So what's the people do? They don't get help. This is not connected to your insurance. The only reason your insurance is in there is so they know how to find you the resources you need and what your insurance covers. But otherwise, any conversation you have with Wellness 360 does not show up on your insurance. You can have those conversations knowing that your superiors in your company will never know the conversation was had.
That's crazy. So you almost answered my second question without even asking it. Because my second question is, what makes your approach different from traditional healthcare models? Well, this is one area.
That
The,
There's
that's
a couple of
great.
other things, but most of them deal mainly with the pay aspect of it. Um, One of the big ones is that though a lot of companies do offer telehealth, most of them include a copay. So that when you reach out on the telemedicine app, it's going to ask you for your credit card information or approval to bill the one in the system for whatever your copay is. So even though you're not seeing a doctor in person, you still have to pay whatever that copay is. This system does not have any copays. It does not have any fees other than that monthly $48 a month. Otherwise, you have 100% access to doctors and nurses, and I'm probably one of those people who overuses the program. And I have never been told, I'm sorry, you've accessed the system too many times. You're exceeding your usage or whatever. No, I can use it. My kids can use it. My husband can use it. And we don't have any extra fees associated with that.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So, can you explain how programs like telehealth or wellness memberships fit into our system, or do they?
So, there's a few different ways I can answer that question. Um, One of the big ones I think that is most important to your listeners and your viewers is the fact that when a medical provider reaches out to a specialist, and if I haven't said so already, they can also refer you to specialists if they need to. But if a doctor, somebody with a medical degree, calls another doctor and says this person must be seen ASAP, and they don't put you on the calendar ASAP, they are liable if there is something seriously wrong and they don't get to it soon enough. And they know that. So if you're talking to somebody on an app like ours and that doctor says, we have to get you in for an MRI, we have to get you in for blood work, we have to get you in for this ASAP, whether it's with a specialist or a labs or whatever. Normally, making a appointment with those companies may be 6 weeks out. It could be 2 months out, 3 months out. I've talked to people who had to wait 6 months to have their appointment with a specialist. But when a doctor reaches out and says, hey, this person has to be seen, you'll see that appointment within a couple of weeks.
Maybe even days, depending, because if they've got a good relationship, that
Yeah,
could go a long way.
and
Yeah.
that's one of the big things that I think is important about that, because not only are you able to talk to somebody, they have all your records there, and these are people who can sit back and say, I know you have to get in now. And instead of trying to make an appointment with your primary, waiting days or weeks to get in with your primary, only for them to refer you to a specialist, and if they don't think to call that specialist themselves and put in that urgency, then you have an appointment months out. We have had people on this system who have had things like cancer identified and, other prostate issues and blood work issues that have been identified quickly because the doctors on our service reached out to that specialist and said, this has to happen now.
That's
And so
amazing.
they got the treatment they needed months earlier than they would have gotten it otherwise.
That's amazing. Listeners, I hope you're catching this. This is almost revolutionary in the way it's presented. Very small out of pocket, if you will, and it covers your whole family, covers mental health, and they got to be licensed. This is all on the very legitimate side of what we do, and we're doing a great job, and Tiana's doing a great job leading this effort. So, one more question in this. So, how can businesses, I say that fast, my tongue gets tied up. How can businesses introduce something like Wellness 360 without increasing their cost or changing contractor classifications? That's a good question.
So There is new options for offering benefits, certain benefits to 1099ers through your organization. And it's your choice whether you split the cost with them or you just provide them access to the program. We do have a form that you can easily fill out that basically lists everyone you want to include in the program and then how much you're paying and if you're taking any out. You can't take any out of their salary like you could if they were a W-2. You take the money out before they get their check. You can't do that with a 1099, but you can work on splits with them so that you pay part and then they get billed for the other part. And that ensures that they get access to the program and they are able to, make sure they're taken care of. They're able to get things addressed quicker. You identify if something's allergies or if it's a viral flu early, then you can take medicine for it and get over it. If it's allergies, guess what? There's over-the-counter stuff that'll make it better. But if you don't know which one it is, you can't do anything about it. And then you're sick longer. So for businesses, it's really important that their timelines stay on, that the bit work gets done, that the money that they spend goes where it needs to go. And if you're doing this through 1099ers, your best option is to make sure they have access to something like this. And like I said, you either split the cost with them or you can actually buy a access for them for the term of their contract. And after the contract's done, then, they lose the access to it and they can either get it back for themselves or, they can hire on with you for a longer contract.
And that's a tax write-off for that business as well if they decide that.
Yes, it is.
I think
Absolutely.
even any portion, if even it's 50-50, okay, very good, very good. Now, I'm kind of excited for this next portion because I know some of your stories, and I'm sure you've got stories from a lot of the people, the clients, but kind of give us some real-world stories about how this has been successful to help some of the other clients that have been benefiting from this program.
So, all right, there's a couple I want to tell, I think. The first one does involve a W-2 employee, but in this case, he was actually on vacation outside of network. So, I don't remember where he was from, but he was down in Florida on vacation and walking along the beach. It was later in the day, visibility was bad. He caught something, twisted his ankle really bad. Like it was swelling as soon as his butt hit the ground, kind of a situation. And instead of panicking and going to the nearest ER where he knew he was going to probably have a $10,000 bill just because he was out of network, even if the only thing they did was take an x-ray and say, you're fine, he decided to use our service. So he called him up, he had the video chat, and they said, yep, that looks really bad. So we need an x-ray. They said, here are your options. This is what an emergency room is going to cost you. Or if you are willing to go 20 extra minutes, there is an imaging center we work with. They will charge you $25 for an x-ray. And they will send it directly to us. And he's like, I'll take the x-ray. So he had a buddy drive him over there. They got the x-rays. It was sent to our specialists who had I just forgot the word for a bone expert, but one of the bone experts look at it and they identified, no, there is no break, but you might have pulled some tendons. So we want you to wear a boot. Here's a link from Amazon for a boot in the appropriate side of the appropriate style, and it cost you $35. He had it 1 day shipped with his Amazon Prime membership, which didn't cost him anything for shipping. He had his boot the next day. He didn't lose a day in the emergency room. He was able to enjoy his vacation, and when he got back home, he just saw his primary in person who said, yep, you're good. You don't need any other treatment. Thank you. Have a good day.
That is crazy awesome. Now, the big part here, the takeaway is, it's out of the network. How many I don't say doctors, but across the network that they use? How many do they have?
They only use two.
Just two?
Just two. The first one that he spoke with on the phone, and then osteo specialist. I don't remember the name for the bone specialist. Those are the only two he had to use.
I'm sorry, I mean the program as a whole. If you're out of network, how many different places can they, where can you be?
Oh, there's a lot of options in that situation, depending on what you need. There are clinics that they're able to use that can provide blood work, labs, x-rays, MRIs, things of that nature. Because they order just the test, it doesn't go through the hospital fees, the ER fees, the room fees, all of this extra stuff that they throw on. And because you're doing it through their imaging center, sometimes they have a little bit of a discount that they're able to throw your way. And they'll tell you up front, it's going to cost this, it's going to cost this, it's going to cost this. You just changed my story I was going to tell, but guess what? We're segueing into a story. So, in this situation, we had an older gentleman. He'd had trouble with his knees for ages. And finally, he was getting them looked at. And he happened to tell the service, hey, I need to get my knees looked at. And they're like, that's great. That's not exactly something we can do over the telemedicine app. So what we're going to do instead is we're sending you a list of questions. These are the questions we want you asking when you get into the service. And so he went in and he took the list of questions with him, and he got to a second, he's like, oh, I don't understand this one. Hang on a second. Pulled up his app, was talking to him, and they said, do you want us to talk to the doctor on your behalf? He said, that would be great, and handed his phone over. Here, talk doctor to doctor. And so the two doctors were talking about his knees, what they'd seen on the x-rays, what they were talking about, what was being proposed, and finally decided to go a much less invasive rate, a much less expensive rate, which included some PT and some other tests to make sure that took care of things before they went into full-blown surgery, which was where the doctor was going originally. Saved this guy tens of thousands of dollars. He ended up being perfectly good after the non-invasive treatment. He no longer had the issues with his knees, and all because he referenced a list of questions that were provided because they knew the system, they understood their client, they knew his situation, and they could talk doctor to doctor with the guy he's trying to have a conversation with. He got the care he needed, and he spent less.
That is incredible. Well, we're getting ready to wrap up. Before we wrap up, though, how can listeners contact you and learn more about Wellness 360?
So it's really easy. You can just go to wellness360.solutions, and there are two buttons on there. One says, you know what, I don't have any questions, I want this now. You can jump in, pay for your subscription, and you will have access within 24 hours, allowing you to contact a medical professional. There's actually a little field in there that says, where did you hear about our program? Make sure you put the Business Hub in there so poor Don knows that he's providing you information that you guys find useful. But if you have questions, you want to know exactly how this is going to affect your business, you're in a unique situation, there is a button on there that says ask about our benefits. Click that, make an appointment, talk to me or somebody like me, and we'll get your questions answered, and we'll see if it makes sense.
Man, this was a lot of information. We went a little bit over, but you know what? I don't care. Some things are just worth it. And this was one of it. I really appreciate you taking the time, Tiana, for joining us today and sharing your insights. Great conversation in the future of healthcare for independent workers. It's important because, you know, there's a lot of money and people are hurting wherever. Now, for our listeners, if your business depends on 1099 contractors, it's time to start thinking beyond the paycheck. Their wellness impacts your success, as we described today. And I'm Don Workman. This has been the Business Hub, helping you build smarter, stronger, and more sustainable businesses. Until next time, stay healthy, stay focused, and keep building your business hub.